The movie begins at school, where a teacher asks John a math question. He hesitates before answering, unsure how he got the answer, but the teacher tells him he's correct. That night, John's father, Brad, says goodnight and tells him they can play tennis if he wakes up early. Before leaving, he asks John to check under his bed. Confused, John does as told. The next day, John flies his drone in the forest until it gets stuck in a tree. He slowly walks toward it, observing the area, and notices a man-made hole. Moments later, he uses a stick to retrieve the drone and silently heads home. When he arrives, he swims in the pool to clean his wounded arm. Afterward, he watches his family from outside his bedroom, then takes a pill before heading out. During breakfast, John's parents ask if he's okay. He says he's just tired, but his expression says otherwise. He tells them he lost the drone, surprising Brad. Suddenly, a car pulls up outside. John's sister, Lori, heads out to meet her boyfriend, Josh, though their parents don't know who he is. Their mother, Anna, believes he should introduce himself first, but Lori just leaves. John then mentions the hole in the forest. His parents assume he's talking about the bunker, an underground emergency room abandoned when its owners went bankrupt. When asked if he's okay again, John insists he's fine, though he looks down. Later, John practices tennis with his coach. Back home, he throws a ball at the ceiling. Annoyed, Lori tells him to stop, but John changes the subject, asking about the book she's reading. One afternoon, John watches their gardener, Charlie, removing weeds. Charlie explains that weeds steal nutrients from plants. As they talk, John notices a spider on Charlie's back. Charlie says it's a garden spider that helps control pests, but suddenly, it bites him. John offers to refill Charlie's lemonade, but secretly adds something to it. That evening, as Charlie walks home, he loses consciousness and falls. John checks if he's awake by poking him with a stick. Seeing that he's unconscious, John places small packets in Charlie's pocket and walks away. That night, John hangs out with his friend, Peter. Peter teases him about his training and doubts he'll make it. When Peter asks about his family, John simply says they're fine. Later, John checks on Lori and his parents, ensuring they're passed out. He secretly sedated them. He drags Brad to the floor, takes his phone from his pocket, then loads him onto a wheelbarrow. Meanwhile, in another house, a mother checks on her daughter, Lily. She's glad Lily likes her room, but worries because she hasn't left it since yesterday. Lily talks about a dream where she was a blue balloon floating in the sky, making her invisible. Her mother doesn't understand and instead mentions that Lily's father has a blue car, though she doesn't know where he is. Still, she believes he'll return. Lily then stands up and dances, saying she learned how to do it. Her mother doesn't believe her but hugs her anyway, then tells her a story about John and the hole. The next day, Lori wakes up in an unfamiliar room. Panicked, she wakes her parents. Brad hears her crying and sits down, trying to process what happened. Lori worries when her mother doesn't wake up, but she eventually does. Brad quickly realizes John isn't with them, and they call for help. Meanwhile, John calls Charlie, mimicking his mother's voice, and tells him not to come to work anymore because Brad will handle the garden. Later, John carefully drives the family car, withdraws money from an ATM, and buys a meal. He eats at home while listening to ocean sounds on his phone. Someone rings the doorbell. It's Paula, Anna's friend, who came to pick her up. John lies, saying the whole family went to visit their grandfather in the hospital. Paula is skeptical since Anna didn't mention it, but John says they left in a hurry. Before leaving, Paula wishes their grandfather well and tells John to call her if he needs anything. Later, John takes food to the bunker. Anna and Brad are relieved to see him, but ask who did this to them. John just stares. Brad asks if he brought a rope, but John only shows them the food. Brad demands a ladder, but John drops the food instead. Realizing what's happening, Lori suspects John, though Anna refuses to believe it. Brad shouts at John to bring a ladder, but John leaves. The next day, John tells Peter he bought a TV and invites him over since his parents won't be home. Meanwhile, in the bunker, Brad, Anna, and Lori try to escape by stacking objects to form a ladder. Brad tells Lori to jump, but she gives up, it's still too high. Frustrated, she cries, upsetting Brad. Lori wonders why John did this. Anna suggests they eat, as there seems to be no way out. Brad initially refuses, but when Lori desperately grabs the food off the ground, he gives in. They eat in silence. At the same time, John plays the piano. It starts raining, leaving his family cold in the bunker. The next morning, he brings them a bag with sweaters and blankets. Anna asks if someone is making him do this or if he's being hurt, but he stays silent and leaves. Lori begs him to talk, but he ignores her. Later, John picks Peter up from the bus stop. On the way home, Peter gets nervous about John's driving. When Peter asks how his grandfather is, John simply says he's still in the hospital. Later, they play video games together, enjoying each other's company. Meanwhile, back in the bunker, Lori relieves herself while her parents look away. Tired, Brad hopes his friend Oliver will call the police. Anna, on the other hand, worries about Paula, who is expecting her for catering work. Lori, feeling hopeless, misses Josh. Brad tells her she barely knows him. Suddenly, Anna recalls John once asking her what it feels like to be an adult. She didn't know what to tell him, because she wasn't sure herself. She told John about responsibilities, but despite that, one never stops being a kid. She believes John was disappointed by the idea. As John and Peter eat, John gets disgusted when Peter licks his spoon and puts it back in the jar. Peter keeps doing it, so John spits in the jar. They bicker and chase each other until John trips, spilling his ice cream on the floor. Peter apologizes and asks what they should do with the remaining one. To get back at him, John makes him eat his ice cream while doing a handstand. At the bunker, a devastated Anna eats a banana peel out of hunger, then cries. That night, Brad sees John flying his drone and whispers for him to leave them alone. The next morning, John drives Peter to the bus station but takes a detour to get cash. After withdrawing money, he hands it to Peter, surprising him. When asked whose money it is, John confirms he has an ATM card. When asked what he wants to buy, Peter asks to keep the money instead, and John agrees. Meanwhile, Lori puts mud on her father's face, and Brad does the same to her. As Anna watches them, she also gets splashed, so the family plays along. After sending Peter off, John arrives home and sees Paula inside. Concerned, Paula mentions his family has been gone for a while, but John says he's fine. When asked if someone will clean the house, John claims the housekeeper will come next week. Unconvinced, she turns to leave, but John asks her to stay. Paula, however, doesn't have much time. Suddenly, John mentions he's 13, then asks Paula her age. Surprised, she tells him it's rude to ask. John understands, and then says Anna is 50. Paula says she knows, so John asks if she's also 50. Annoyed, Paula asks what's with him, but he keeps asking, so she confirms. When asked how she feels about being 50, Paula admits she was terrified at first, but now thinks it's not bad. She told John about responsibilities, but despite that, one never stops being a kid. She believes John was disappointed by the idea. With errands to do, Paula says she has to go, but John wants her to stay. He says she can sleep there, but Paula refuses since she has responsibilities. As he steps closer, she gets creeped out and calls Anna's phone. Hearing it ring inside the house, Paula realizes something is wrong. John quickly says Anna left it behind because they were in a hurry. Scared, Paula leaves. That night, Brad flashes a light at Anna and asks what happened between her and John. Annoyed, Anna screams for him to turn it off, waking Lori. Still, Brad insists something must have happened. As they argue, Lori takes only a small sip of water since Anna warns her not to drink at all. Anna claims nothing happened, but Brad doesn't believe her. Meanwhile, Lily's mother says she's leaving. When asked where, she says it doesn't matter. She tells Lily she'll be on her own now and won't be coming back, shocking her. She left money that should last a year if Lily spends wisely. Confused, Lily asks to go with her, but her mother refuses, saying she's old enough. Lily insists she's only 12, but her mother argues that her grandmother had her at 15 and became independent early. Desperate, Lily begs to go. Annoyed, her mother yells that there's no room in the car. Lily tries to find another way, but her mother threatens to take back the money. Lily tells her to take it. She doesn't need it. She even suggests selling their house, but her mother laughs, revealing they only rent. Worried, Lily asks where she'll go when the money runs out, but her mother says that's up to her. Desperate, Lily hugs her mother, but it doesn't stop her from leaving. As a last attempt, Lily offers to be her assistant, but her mother refuses, holding back tears. She grabs her bags and abandons her daughter. One day, Paula brings the police to John's house, but the doors are locked. Shocked, John crawls out of his room to avoid being seen. Later, John practices tennis with his coach, who doesn't think he's ready for the competition. The coach asks about John's mother since she hasn't paid for lessons. He offers to help if John is struggling, but John insists he's fine. Frustrated, the coach tells him he needs to keep training. The qualifiers are tough. Some kids train like professionals, while others have parents who don't support them. He reminds John that this is his life and his choice. Hearing this, John says he just wants to be himself and promises to get his mother to pay. Meanwhile, in the bunker, Brad's stomach growls. Lori hopes John will bring food soon. It's been a while. She starts to believe John is starving them, but Anna tells her not to think that way. Instead, she worries something happened to John. Brad notes it's the first time he's felt real hunger. As they talk, John sits near the hole listening. Later, he floats in the pool, where Oliver notices him. Thinking John drowned, Oliver rushes to help, but John rises, assuring him he's fine. Oliver, working next door, asks for Brad, but he's not around. He mentions their messy garden, but John just offers him a drink, which he declines. Oliver says he'll return tomorrow after work, so John asks if they owe him money. Oliver clarifies that it's not about money. John then mentions he's cooking risotto, but Oliver declines and leaves. In the kitchen, John follows a tutorial to cook risotto. Meanwhile, in the bunker, the family entertains themselves with a tongue twister. Lori stops when she hears John arrive. Anna asks when he'll talk, but John just stares. Brad says John has made his point. They won't punish him. Desperate, Anna begs for help, saying they'll help him in return. John looks at them, sad, as they plead. Brad warns that someone will notice their absence and call the police. Knowing they're hungry, John lowers a bucket of food with a rope. Brad tests the rope's strength, but John cuts it. He then mentions he made risotto, and the family eats it with their hands. John sits at the top, eating with them. Brad finds his favorite wine in the bucket, opens it, and drinks. John does the same. While eating, John shares that he hit 300 serves, but his family, starving, doesn't care. That night, John plays with the house lights, then drives alone, silently crying. Later, he wanders the forest with a flashlight, alone and lonely. The next morning, he returns to find his family asleep. He cries, frustrated by what he's done. Lori wakes up and sees him, so he wipes his tears. She reminds him about tennis and thanks him for the risotto, praising it. She suddenly feels sad and apologizes without knowing why. Moments later, they hear John putting down the ladder. Shocked, the family immediately climbs up. They walk home, with Lori running ahead. She sees John floating in the pool and screams. They rush to save him, but he's fine. That day, the family fills the hole with soil, so nothing gets trapped again. As if nothing happened, they eat dinner like usual. The next day, Lily walks alone in the forest, just as lonely as John. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.